Hi, little birds. Alright, there's been a video on my mind for a while, and it's been ever since I released my first one, and that was on how I was Mormon and growing up. And I know there's a lot of misunderstanding on Mormonism and what it is, and about the people and all of that. So I wanted to give some insight because it will kind of tell you about me more and where I'm coming from. You know, I always tell people I lived a very sheltered life, and I did. And it was a lot to do with the church and how I was brought up. You know, we didn't talk about sex. We didn't talk about, a lot of that stuff. And, sorry, my phone is vibrating. But we didn't talk about things or like LGBT stuff. It wasn't brought up in the church. It's never brought up. And when it is, it's always brought up in this very negative light where, oh, you can be gay, but you can't practice it. You can't be involved with anybody. And I think that's really living a half life, if you will. And you don't get to live it fully if you're Mormon, because you have to remain celibate. And that doesn't seem right. And I don't, that's a lot of why I left, is because they do this to people and they say, hey, you can't do that. But I've known plenty of people in, well, at least a few in the LGBT community, and it showed me different. It showed me, hey, there's nothing wrong with these people. They're great people. They seem to have Christian values still. So, growing up in the church kind of almost to an extent made me bigoted towards some groups, and I hate that part of me. But ultimately, I've definitely changed. I know different now, and so the church, you grow up youth. When you start as a little young kid like I did, you start in primary, and primary is just basically anybody, like everybody else's primary, or little kids school in church where you go there, sing hymns, and learn about Jesus and learn about the doctrine, and they simplify it so that you as a child can understand. And you go through this till you are 12. At 12, you're then separated into women and men, and you have different stages. For the boys, I know a little better, obviously, but you start off as a deacon, and you go to a teacher, then you're a priest. And each of those, they say you gain more experience in the church and what they call the priesthood. And with these responsibilities, you learn more. And a deacon is 12 to 14, and then after 14, you go to a teacher, and at a, teacher is 14 to 16, and then a priest is 16 to 18. After that, you're kind of expected as a male to go off and do a 2-year mission and serve for the church and, proselyte and send out the good word of the Lord and all this other stuff. And I can't say I disagree with it. The church has a lot of good values. I like the fact that they say that you should be living clean, not a lot of meat, not drinking alcohol, not taking in cigarettes. So basically keeping yourself healthy. to an extent, but they never touch on, also keeping yourself healthy as far as, exercising and things. They never touch on it. So it's like, okay, but you could still be obese even though you don't do any of those things. So, and then for the girls, they have a similar scale where they have 3 different levels, and they learn different things like homemaking. The church is very segregated, where they expect the men to be men from like the 1950s, where you're the man of the household and you're expected to do this and take care of your family. And then women are expected, to be the baby makers and the household managers. And you get scrutinized when the woman of the house works. They say, oh yeah, we're all about equality and we talk about equal. No. You get judged a lot in Mormonism on what you're doing in life, what you do outside of church, and it's a very negative atmosphere to be in, because you feel like anything you do, you get judged. And then, so once you've graduated youth program, what they call it, and it used to have Boy Scouts of America attached with the boys, and they ideally wanted you to get your Eagle Scout, but obviously that has dropped off a lot, and the church has separated themselves from the Boy Scouts of America, because the Boy Scouts of America have allowed gays as well as transgender people into the Boy Scouts of America, which I totally support. That's great. They are showing inclusion. They're being out there and supporting groups and not saying, oh, you can only be a natural born male. So as you graduate the youth program, you go do a mission. The women don't. You go to college and other things, and then you're expected to continue to serve. Like, you can serve in other capacities like teaching children, or you run a branch or a ward, which is the different buildings that you may see within your communities, and that's kind of how it's set up. And they do have what they call a prophet, and then they have 12 apostles, so just like the New Testament says. And I liked a lot of their messages. They said I liked their wholesomeness, but at the same time, I really think that group needs much more younger people, because most of them are 70 plus, 60 plus, so they have different ideals than a lot of the youth that they are teaching or talking to. And it's like, okay, as a youth, I couldn't relate to some of the things they would say, because how I grew up was very different than how they grew up. And then to be married, you're expected to go through the temple. And for the temple, I won't go into the ceremonies. You can YouTube that. There's plenty on that that's fairly accurate. And yes, it is connected to Masons, because from what I've seen from Masons, the rituals are very similar. And many Mormons can deny that, but Joseph Smith, who is the founding person, was very much involved with Masons as well as treasure finding groups. So you can't just say, okay, there's no connection there when he was part of the Masons, and it's proven by a few scholars that have written books on him. So there is some influence there, for good or bad. And so the temple has these rituals. I got some of the rituals, but I didn't understand them because it was like, why are we doing this? Why? But to get in, they ask you a series of questions, which some of them I did not even know at the time, and I'm like, what is this? I don't know what that is. I don't do it, obviously, if I don't know what it is. Like, one of them was, do you masturbate? And I was like, what is that? That sounds like some weird thing, but no, I don't do it. So it was just like, they ask you some of these questions to see if you're qualified to go in the temple, which is why they don't let outsiders in, because they feel like they're keeping the temple holy and pure. And you know how many people probably lie to get in there? Probably plenty. I like to break it down for you. And it's a good environment, but at the same time it's very negative for just trying to find yourself, because you have to fit into this Mormon mold, and if you don't fit into that Mormon mold, then you kind of don't feel there. And I started to feel that once I kind of got back from my mission, and after I started going to college, I just didn't feel right in that mold. I didn't feel like I fit. And I think a lot of that had to do with my identity, but at the same time, I could see what was happening within the church. How they didn't accept people. I mean, they didn't accept African Americans into the church fully until like 75 or something like that. I don't know the exact date. You can write it down in the box if you want to, but the 70s, they didn't start giving them, full access to other things, while other groups were already doing that. That's crazy. Like, really? And then you want to say you're very open people and understanding? No, you're not. And if you live in the heart of Mormonism, which is Salt Lake City, the judgment is 10 times worse. It is much worse. It is horrible. Like, you don't come one Sunday because you're sick or something. They look at you like you've just like killed God or something. Like, okay, look, I was sick. I couldn't make it. I'm not going to come when I'm sick, okay? So that's kind of a brief synopsis of Mormonism. If you would like to know more, I'll definitely answer questions. You can definitely put it down in the comments. And be your authentic selves. Be who you feel you are. And, subscribe. Hit the little notification bell. And like or hate this video, as I always tell you. Bye.